Hi, my name is Serenity Sweany. My presentation is going to be about are serial killers born or made? And then we're going to take a look at Ted Bundy, Parker Ray, and Jeffrey Dahmer. This is for Dr. Warren's class. So, just the overview, real quick. We're going to talk about childhood trauma, abuse and how it affects the killers, genetic mutations, and then some backgrounds of some serial killers. My thesis statement is most people think serial killers are more often than not born like that, but really I think they are shaped into the people they became when they were older. There are many studies that have been done showing that many serial killers have gone through some sort of abuse in their lifetime, usually when they were younger, that have been the reason that they kill. I think serial killers are made rather than born. So the reason that I think this is just there have been a lot of studies shown that a lot of serial killers have gone through some sort of abuse, rather that be um, physical, psychological, um, sexual, e- everything. So we're gonna dig a little deeper into that, but I do also think that some might have some genetic mutations where like their brain works differently than ours. But I think mainly it's just because when they are abused, their brain chemistry changes. So I think that's how the mutations are made. So first, we're going to take a look at Ted Bundy and how he grew up. Um, when he was younger, or when he was first born, his mother was living in a home for unwed mothers, which I'm assuming is just like a women's shelter. They I couldn't find exactly what an unwed mother's home was. I'm assuming just like a women's shelter. Um, but eventually they moved back in with his grandparents, and while he was growing up, he thought that he grew up thinking his grandparents were his biological parents. Um, he always had a suspicion that they weren't his parents just by like the age gap that him and his mom had, and also just like the way his grandparents like treated him. Um, on that note, his grandfather was extremely abusive towards him. He would hit him. Um, he raped him a couple times. He like would lock him in his room, everything. He was also rumored to be the result of a rape. So there was a rumor going around in his town that his mother was raped by her father, and that's where how Ted Bundy was made. There was no exact proof to that, but it was a rumor that he would grow up hearing. Next, let's look into his teenage years. When he was older and like he knew that his mom was his mom at this point, him and his mom moved to a different state. They lived there for a little bit, and then his mother met a guy, and they ended up getting married, and they had three other children together. And after they had the other three children, his mother started neglecting him. And I feel like that had a lot to do with his resentment towards women. His stepfather was also abusive towards him. Um, so before we dive into David Parker Ray, sorry. I think so Ted Bundy targeted women, and I have a feeling that was a lot to do with his resentment towards his mother. He would pick younger women who were about the same age as his mother when she had him, and then he would rape them and then murder them. So I feel like that has a lot like to do with his mom and like the resentment that he had. So now let's dive into David Parker Ray, which if you don't know him, he's also considered the toy box killer. He was raised by his grandparents, and his grandparents were not the nicest towards him, but they weren't like the normal abusive. They like didn't hit him, nothing. well, not completely, but they their abuse came like was mainly mental, like towards him. He would see his father sometimes on the weekends, and his father would abuse him. His father, at a young age, started showing him satanic pornography, and he would also hit him. And um, if he didn't want to watch it, his father would get really mad at him. And yeah, his mother, the reason he didn't live with his mother was because his mother was super unfit. So let's look at this chart I have up right here. Um, as you can see, so the normal population is going to be blue, and then serial killers are going to be red. So 40 or about 37% of serial killers have gone through some sort of physical abuse, and then 26% have gone through sexual abuse. 50% of serial killers have gone through psychological abuse. Oh, hang on. Let's go back. Sorry. Um, 50% have gone through psychological abuse, and then about the same percentage of normal population as serial killers have gone through neglect. And then most population, it's just none. No abuse, nothing. And then only about um 31% have never, like serial killers have never gone through any sort of abuse. So these show that statistics um have been correct about the whole thing. So David's school life, he was bullied a lot while he was younger. He started drawing satanic things because of his father. There's a picture of one of his drawings, along with a picture of his face. His sister found his journal of all these drawings and stopped talking to him, would not talk to him, refused to speak to him, told him that he was not her brother anymore and everything. Towards his like high school days, he ended up developing a drug and alcohol issue. Um, all of those issues with him and abuse that he had going on in his home life, I feel like was the reason that he targeted his victims. Let's Okay, now we're gonna look at Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer had what looked like a normal life growing up. All of his neighbors had said that like it looked like he was a happy, loving boy, like everything. Um, but what they did not know was that his mother struggled with mental health issues, and his father worked long hours at the lab that he worked at. His dad was a scientist. The the family moved a lot. They moved around to different states, different like cities, everything. So Jeffrey Dahmer had like a lot of issues trying to make friends. At a young age, Jeffrey Dahmer started to show signs of deep psychological issues, which probably they should have gotten it looked at, but again, these parents were very absent. And even if they didn't want to be, the dad worked long hours and the mother had her own issues going on. Jeffrey Dahmer, in his high school years, he did not have any friends because since they were moving around a lot, he couldn't make that many friends. And he was also just like a weird kid. Um, in his high school days, he found out that he was gay, which he kept a secret for a long time. Um, he would exhibit weird behavior, like he started bringing home animal carcasses and like dissecting them, which his dad just thought it was like him being a kid because his dad taught him a lot about his science life. So he just thought it was like moving down to him, like the interests. And then after graduation, he committed his first murder. And then all of these are the websites I use. But let's talk a little bit more about the whole thing. I just, even though Jeffrey Dahmer did not look like he had a rough life, He did. He was neglected by his parents, and also with him being bullied in school, he just was not the same ever. So I think personally, I think that abuse has a lot to do with serial killers. And also it like changes their brain chemistry. So I think that's why serial killers are who they are when they get older. And yeah, so thank you for listening. I love talking to you guys, and I'll talk to you guys later.